Podcast episode
31.
What's going on?
Not much. Trying to get myself back together after breathing in your jalapeno smoke for 20 minutes. He decides before we have a podcast to cook the spiciest must-be jalapenos ever, and we were just both dying. I was just like, had to blow my nose like 5 times.
The fumes coming off of the sautéed jalapenos as they were cooking were pretty intense.
Yeah. He just kept saying, got to train those lungs.
Train the lungs. Jalapeno lungs.
I don't think you could trade that.
Yeah.
Just burn
Build up
yourself.
some tolerance.
Oh, is that what it is?
Something like that.
I have 0, I guess.
All right. Well, here we are. So hopefully we are, knock on wood, going to have another good podcast today. We are recovered from our last debacles. The last one was pretty good, I thought.
Yeah.
We got some stuff to go over today. What's been new, Josh? Anything?
I filmed a friend's wedding on Saturday.
You filmed one?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I came out of wedding retirement for one time. One night only.
Where was it at?
It was, what was that? It's like out somewhere in the middle of nowhere by Fairlawn. Is that Macedonia?
Macedonia is kind of going that way.
Yeah, it's somewhere out there.
Southeast.
Yeah, it was like on a horse farm.
Oh, that's cool.
So, yeah, it was pretty cool. It was a friend thing, so it was kind of chill and relax, and that's why I decided to do it. But it reminded me why I don't want to do them. It's just so much stress, and it's so long.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I was talking to Paige about it yesterday. She did a lot of weddings, I think, as well. She was talking about basically how much she hates doing it as well. So.
Yeah, like my one friend, the photographer is a friend of mine, Jess, but that's like her thing.
Uh-huh.
She's like a bubbly, like, people person, and so it works out for her. But man, I just don't have that.
It sounds like you really got to commit to like the wedding photographer life, you know. And if you commit to it, I'm sure it's fun. I'm sure it's fun, right? Because one, like, I mean, just knowing as somebody who hired one, like, you charge a boatload of money for it.
Yeah.
Two, like, it is if you want to be a part of a very special moment in somebody's lives, I'm sure you could find a lot of satisfaction out of that, you know. And three, I'm sure there's some, some people that just like that environment.
Yeah.
You know.
Actually, this is my buddy who actually does wedding videos. That's like his thing. Like, he just got into it. You know that Thumbtack app?
Yes.
Yeah. He does all of his business through that.
Really?
Surprisingly. Yeah, he's like, I just got it randomly to just try, and I guess a lot of people look for that.
Well, I remember when we were with Heights, Jake used to like use Thumbtack all the time for finding contractors, that, like people to do different work. I've never used any of those sites before. You know, I feel like mostly because I've always had just like referrals of people to go to.
Yeah.
But
well, he was telling me a story yesterday, and it kind of reminded me of that gentleman that he had to kind of like turn down a little while ago. But so he somehow got his timing mixed up or schedule mixed up, and the bride texts him like a half hour before the ceremony. It was where are you?
Yeah.
And he was like, shit. And it was in Elyria, and he lives in Eastlake.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm driving like 100 miles down the road, like, I'm just trying to get there. And I guess he got there, and then the bride's mom had just walked down the aisle, so they made her do it again so he could get it. But long story short, he still got them a nice video. It wasn't like the long video that they wanted.
Yeah.
But she has been like consistently like bridezilla-ing him for 2 months. This was 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Right? And he gave her money back, gave her extra money, which I don't know why he did that, but he gave her like $300 as an inconvenience or something.
Yeah.
And then still gave her the video.
Yeah.
And she was like, he works a day job during the week.
Yeah.
And she was like, found out where he works and was like, I'm going to call your HR and complain to you and all this stuff. And I was just like, this is like the insane thing that I don't want to ever happen. And I was like, I understand it's like his fault that he was like not there, but he did everything to reconcile and make her happy. And
I don't know. I mean, I look at a situation like that and I would be fuming pissed as well. Like I would want all my money back.
Yeah.
I would still want them to take the photos and video like at the place because I don't have an alternative at that point. Like you still have to do it.
Yeah.
But like you basically fucked my whole day.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I mean, all of the then past that point, like, what are you accomplishing out of it?
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot you would accomplish out of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I guess she keeps saying like, I want my 5-minute highlight video because it was like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's literally nothing I can do.
I don't have anything else.
I don't have anything else. Like, I'm so sorry. But yeah, it's just like one of those like, you know, customer service things. Like, you can only bend over backwards so far, and you're obviously never going to make this lady happy.
Yeah, and I don't know, stuff like that. Like you kind of accept your loss and move on from it.
Yeah,
you know, like as in both of their cases. You know, like her dwelling on it isn't going to benefit her at all.
No,
and him dwelling on like this lady's being a bitch right now, like isn't gonna help anything either. Like in the end of the day, like you screwed up. In the end of the day, you didn't get what you wanted, and nothing you're going to do right now is going to
it's an unfortunate situation, but you know, and my thing is like, okay, I think I would understand more if it was like the photographer, because I feel like the photos at weddings are more important than the video. But
I don't know. So I've never understood the whole video thing for weddings until just now. You know, we obviously hired a videographer. Kate really wanted it.
Yeah.
And, you know, same deal. The conversation I was having with Paige yesterday and the other media girl that we have, Ella. I guess like video is the new thing everybody is wanting right now. Like that's like... It's like the hot thing right now.
Yeah.
They can go back and rewatch it. And especially, I think, in a media sharing world, like social media, you know, Instagram, Facebook, all those things.
Yeah.
A lot of people would probably sit there and watch a clip of that video over and over and over again.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like, flip through photos. Like, it's not like we have, like, photo albums anymore, you know?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's like, I mean, I guess it's kind of bad, too, this year because a lot of the scheduled weddings right now are rescheduled from last year, so they're already like at this weird heightened sense of like rage mode, you know. So the bridezillas are real this year. Be careful. Be careful out there, photographer friends. You never know.
And be careful with your scheduling.
Yes, be very careful with your scheduling.
Make sure you jot those things down a couple times.
Yeah. I mean, he said he's killing it. Like, he's done like 33 weddings this year.
Wow.
Already. And that was like the one that...
Yeah.
I was like, of course, the one that you like miss up is like the worst like person you could have done it to.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Shit happens, you know?
It does. Don't be deterred.
What else is new? Anything?
I think I got to go back to my halls pretty soon because I don't know if you saw yesterday, and they're going to start doing brunch.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Doing everything.
Some chicken and waffle sandwiches.
Yeah.
Dude, you're going to have to look at it later because they posted like a couple sneak peeks. Yeah. Waffle is the bread. Come on.
Sounds good. Sounds like I can't eat that right now. We're in the middle of the last week of wedding prep right now.
Yeah.
I got to slim down here.
This guy's getting married. Well... celebrating the marriage.
Celebrating the marriage. We're having a very expensive party.
Yes.
That's basically what we're doing.
When did you guys actually get married? Last year or was it this year?
Kate's going to kill me because I don't remember exactly when it is.
Oops, I put you on the spot. Don't listen to this one.
I believe it was February, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Pretty sure it was February. Hold on, I'm going to find it out here right now because I need to know this. Oh, man, Josh, you're really...
I'm sorry.
Screwing me right now.
I didn't know.
Here it is. January 16th.
Okay. January.
January 16th. It was looks like it was a couple days after we filmed our first podcast.
Dang.
January 11th was the day of our first podcast.
And you didn't even tell me.
Crazy times. We kept it secret. We didn't want everybody to know. Wow. It's supposed to be low key, you know.
Low key, huh?
So yeah, that's fun. So we're going to be having a lot of new podcast stuff coming up here. We got a couple guests coming on soon. Our guest rescheduled from a couple weeks ago. We're working on getting that person on here in the next week or so, and then we got another one. So today, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be burning through some TikTok questions we got. So we have been in the last, I would say, month or so, going pretty hard on the TikTok game. We've kind of ignored that platform for a very long time, and we have been full on posting every day on that thing. I think 5 days a week currently. And we've seen quite a bit of growth on that channel. It's been going really well. Yep. We have a employee designated to doing TikToks, which is good because I don't know anything about TikTok. Paige knows very little about TikTok. Sounds like you know very little about TikTok.
Nothing.
So we need somebody. We need some young eyes to work on the old TikTok.
Young TikTokers.
So with that, we've been getting quite a few questions on there that I personally don't see pop up in my feed ever, just because I don't really go on that platform a whole lot. Yeah. But I was sent a list of, I think like 7 or 8 different questions here that we had received on there that we're going to kind of burn through here. And today's going to kind of be just a general dog training Q&A podcast, I would say.
Mm. All right, real quick.
Yeah.
Move your Yeti over. There you go.
Is that better?
Yeah. It was just like
gotta see the face.
Your head was like right on top. It was like you were attached to the Yeti.
It's my neck. The Yeti is my
the
neck.
Yeti's your neck.
Oof.
Yeah, so, well, I think we should say, too, that we might start getting away from the dog stuff a little bit. And maybe...
Yeah, I mean, I think what's going to happen here is we're going to start segmenting things where it's going to be like... Yeah, almost like, so if you watch Joe Rogan, right? Mm-hmm. Joe Rogan has like the Joe Rogan episodes and he has the Joe Rogan MMA episodes.
Yeah.
Right? Where like, just so everybody knows, like as they're scrolling through, they're like, oh, this podcast is just going to be about UFC.
Yeah.
Right? Or this is general random people kind of podcast.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to do something similar to that where it's going to be like the David the Dog Trainer podcast, which is general dog themed, this, that, right? Mm-hmm. And then the David the Dog Trainer like business episode or the David the Dog Trainer this episode or something like that, where we'll probably touch on dog related things in it because that's all I really know how to talk about anyways. But we're going to dive into discussing things with other small business owners, other entrepreneurs in the Cleveland area, and kind of dive into some of that as well, because that was one of the big things we wanted to do when starting this podcast is make sure we were discussing a lot of that kind of stuff. I get a lot of questions from whether it's new dog trainers who are creating their businesses. I have a lot of friends and friends and quote unquote colleagues that own different types of businesses. The cool thing is there's a lot of similarities business to business, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. Like we look at dog training and we look at like, oh, well, we're dog trainers, right? And we tend to neglect a lot of the really important business related things. Yep. Like all the boring, stupid stuff like dealing with employees, taxes, running payroll, like all the necessary, so, insurance coverage, dealing with, business-related crises. So going back to your thing about your friend that missed the wedding day, right? Yeah. Like, we could get into stuff that's all about like biggest failures in business, like all together, and how to remedy those types of situations. Because the first thing I was doing when I was hearing that conversation that you were telling me about that guy missing that wedding day. And one of the things that I try to do anytime I like make a big screw up, right, is I immediately just absorb all of that responsibility on me, right? So like my thought is like, regardless of like how like bitchy this like lady might be being about like Bridezilla and stuff like that, in the end of the day, that dude made like that was like a huge fuck up, right? Yeah. Regardless of like how important the video is over the photo or this or that. Yeah. I would say that lady's got every right to be really, really, really pissed off. Now, do I agree with all the things she's doing? Or like if she's saying she'd be reaching out to employers or this or that? No, but that does come with the territory of when you make a mistake, right? Especially a large mistake, there are repercussions from that, right? And the cool thing, though, is if you take something like that and you break it down and you say, forget what she's doing and forget me being pissed at her. Like right now, like I don't really have a reason to be super pissed at her because I'm the one who initially made that mistake. Yeah. What can I learn from this experience? Right? Yeah. And first thing going through my head is like, this is why we send out follow-up or follow-up confirmation emails or week before check-ins or this or that or something to ensure. And this is something that we're even guilty of, right? Like I've run into plenty of situations before where, boom, client shows up for a lesson and I'm either not there or I double booked myself accidentally or something like that. And those are things that can be remedied through follow-up scheduling emails or something like that, you know? So first thing going on in my head when I think that kind of stuff is how can I look at this as how do I make sure stuff like that doesn't happen again, right? Or how do I accept that loss like on my end and do my best to remedy it, not in this individual situation, but altogether like throughout my business, right? And I think the cool thing is the similarities between somebody like that, a wedding photographer, or somebody that does fitness coaching, or somebody that does construction or landscaping, or somebody that owns a small retail store, we're all going to have these failures, right? Or we're going to have these successes, right? One or the other. And we could always look at those things as really good business lessons to learn from, right? Yeah. And especially as you get into like more established companies or businesses that are more quote unquote businessy, you know, than something like dog training, because like we tend to look at dog training again as just like, you know, we're providing this service, right?
Yeah.
I think there's so much more that you could even learn from that kind of stuff. So I guess I would say that we want to do this not only because those are really interesting topics to discuss, but also because I think for the dog training community out there, there's such a great deal that can be learned from looking at other people that are doing other things in the business world.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And at the end of the day, whose podcast is it?
What?
Whose podcast is this?
It's the David, the Dog Trainer podcast.
It's David's podcast. And he can talk about whatever the heck he wants.
That's true. I think I said that at one point.
You did.
Yeah.
It was a powerful moment.
Powerful moment. It's me owning. This is the podcast.
This is mine.
So I think that should be exciting, you know, and I think that'll really broaden our reach as far as things that we can talk about, people that will be listening, stuff like that. So we got a couple people lined up for that. We're kind of getting put on the calendar as far as getting them in and stuff. So expect those things soon.
Exciting.
Yeah. All right, Josh, anything else to
No, I think we can start digging into some TikTok questions.
All right. So we've got 7 questions specifically from TikTok, and then we've got a couple miscellaneous ones from Instagram. So it's been a while since we did one of these. So let's start cruising through it. Question number 1. What would you say is the best way to build confidence when playing with other dogs? So confidence in playing with other dogs. How do you build confidence with playing with other dogs? So dogs, when they're interacting with other dogs, tend to do a very good job of doing the work themselves. So what I mean by that is dogs interact in a way that is so much different than we can even understand, right? So when they're playing with each other, interacting, or doing any number of things when we leave them together to their own devices, they can communicate on such a deeper level to each other because they understand exactly what body language means. They understand what the noises that they're making means. And all we can do as humans is we could try to interpret those things, right?
Yeah.
So because we try to interpret those things, what I find a lot of trainers out there do is I find that they interpret those things very incorrectly, right? And they try to micromanage things because of it. They try to step in and insert the human mindset into things of, oh, well, I don't like this, or he looks scared, or this dog's annoying him, or this or that, as opposed to understanding some of the deeper side of things where, you know, there are plenty of times using a random example here. Man, I got some hiccups still. I think is still a jalapeno. You know? There's plenty of times where there's a dog in the corner over there and they look scared or this or that. And then you got some dog that keeps going over and poking at them and messing with them and stuff like that. And I've seen so many trainers from the outside looking in, they would look at that and be like, I need to advocate for that scared dog, right? I need to, I need to step in and tell that annoying dog to back off and do all sorts of things like that, right? And they wind up stopping that dog and then just leaving that dog to be scared in the corner by itself. As opposed to, if you start leaving some of those things be, I've seen plenty of times where even if that dog in the corner is scared and like growling or air snapping or something like that and clearly showing that they're in distress, these dogs know better than we do, and they'll actually go into that situation and continue poking and pushing and prodding and essentially pulling that dog out of their comfort zone a little bit. If that corner is their comfort zone, they need that annoying dog to push on them and to get them to open up and get them to learn that they can start interacting, whether that be growling and air snapping initially, which we look at as, aggressive, super scary, this or that, as opposed to the dog learning, they can start communicating, right? And they can start opening up a little bit and being themselves, right? Yeah. So I say all of this because the first step of building confidence in playing with other dogs is creating an environment that is going to be conducive to stuff like that happening. So what does that mean? Again, we talk about this all the time. Removing any sort of resources that could potentially create a problem. Food, toys, affection. Those are the three things that kind of gray everything and create territorialness and guarding and protectiveness. And we do it in a somewhat open area where there's not going to be too many places where a dog can feel trapped and not like they can get away if they get stressed out. And then from there, we supervise, right? That's our job. Our job is to play lifeguard. It is not to micromanage. It is to allow these dogs to open up and communicate with each other where we can supervise it, where if things do start to get out of hand, which, listen, they do sometimes, we could then step in and address a problem as needed.
Yeah.
But for the most part, your best way of building that confidence is repeatedly putting them in situations with other dogs where that environment is going to be appropriate like that, where you could supervise it really effectively and you could allow the dogs to communicate with each other. And you're going to see if you just let a lot of the things slide that you typically would not let slide, your dog will continuously begin to open up and interact far more than you would have ever seen before. So that's what I find a lot of the issue is people just don't understand, and I think they get scared off too easily, right? Yeah. They get too nervous when they start seeing a dog looking uncomfortable or a dog growling or a dog letting a little snap out. And our first response is dog snaps. And something, it could be literally something as stupid as like a dog kind of jumps on their back and they go, "Arr!" And our first response is, "Hey!"
Yeah.
"No!" And we're constantly just like, I did something wrong, and then you're giving the dog this false pretense that they did something incorrect, and then they start feeling like I can't communicate at all, so they bottle it up inside and they stay nervous and they stay scared and they wind up feeling like I can't do anything right now, which is why you see a lot of these dogs go hide in the corner, hide in this place, do this, do that, right? The other big issue I see people do is they keep socialization way too long, right? Josh and I will set up a play date with our dogs, and we're going to be grilling on the back patio. We get our dogs together, and for the first 45 minutes to an hour, we're like watching it. We're doing everything correctly and stuff. But then after an hour goes by, whatever, we got a beer, we're grilling, we're not paying attention, we're all chit-chatting, hanging out, and then suddenly we're not supervising, something goes wrong, dog fight breaks out, and then it's like, oh my God, everything went wrong, and the dogs are aggressive and this and that, as opposed to understanding we didn't set up that social situation for success with those dogs.
Yeah.
So that's another side of it, is you have to make sure that you do that appropriately, right? So, there's a lot more that goes into making sure the socialization goes successfully, obviously, and if you're dealing with a dog, there's a serious bite risk. But honestly, those dogs that are like the quote unquote really aggressive ones that you actually have to worry about there being a problem or something like that, they're so much less frequent than you'd think. And a lot of these dogs that come in for quote unquote dog aggression issues, it's really not as intense as you'd think. And really, a lot of owners just need to kind of step back and let some of this stuff happen so that the dog can be more successful with things. Yeah. So,
I mean, I think you kind of touched on it, but I was going to say, like, I feel when people are really fearful of it, and they're stopping it every time they hear something. Yeah. You've now associated that with, like, this is a bad thing to do for your dog. Like, your dog's like, if I do too much of this, then I'm going to get punished for it.
Yeah.
So, like you said, I think, it's like kind of a bottle up thing. And then also, it's like you having a nice conversation with someone, and then Ted always comes over and just interrupts, in the middle of your conversation. How, like, Matt, doesn't that upset you when someone just comes over and just interrupts like an intense conversation you were having?
Yeah, 100%. That's good. That's a good human analogy to put on it.
Yeah.
Or on the contrary, it's like if you're having a good time with somebody, right, and we're hanging out together, and then suddenly it just draws out for like 6 hours.
Yeah, I know.
And then it's kind of like, God, we're going to start getting a little annoyed with each other, a little awkward, or there's going to be a problem that arises of some sorts. Yeah. It's going to feel more forced then at that point. Yeah. So keep it short and sweet.
Yeah, like if you're at a party
keep
and you're
wanting more.
Yeah, and your social battery's just dead.
Start getting a little irritated.
Yeah. Oh, I hate
Happens
that.
to me all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I got a very short social clock. And once that hits over the edge, get me out.
It's like, all right, see you guys later.
All right, good one. All right, question 2. When working with a dog on a walk who has a lot of dog reactivity, I find that even when I try and pull my dog to the side and have her sit, she still has her attention solely on the other dog, even if I try to give her a treat. What should I do? Okay, this is a good question because we start getting into common misconceptions here when it comes to some of the things we recommend doing. I think a lot of people look at some of the advice I give as way too surface level, right? They're for whatever reason, whether I'm not explaining it well enough or they're just not figuring it out or whatever it is, but they look at this advice as too surface level. They don't understand the depth behind it. So, for example, right, one of the things I recommend clients do sometimes with their dogs when they're dealing with dog reactivity issues is if you're going to pass another dog, to pull your dog a ways off to the side, put them into a stationary position, whether it's a sit or a down, and allow that dog to pass by you as opposed to you trying to walk by them. Now, the reason why I recommend doing this is because it's more visually easy to capture. So what I mean by that is when you're walking with your dog and you're trying to pass another dog, say there's a dog over there, I'm walking, I got my dog right here. Here's my dog heeling with me. Sometimes it's really gray if I should correct when the dog does this, or if I should correct when the dog gets excited and does this, or I should correct when the dog does this, or when they move to the side, or when they lag behind. It's significantly more gray of a thing that if you're not a trainer, it could be hard to capture that exact moment when your dog, quote unquote, leaves that heel position.
Yeah.
Right? When you're doing a sit or down, it's so freaking black and white. They're either in that position or they are not in that position.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why I recommend doing it. Now, there's more to it than just putting the dog in the sit, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think, oh, my dog knows sit, so I'll just go on a walk and this will just solve the problem. I just walk outside and I say, sit. And then suddenly dog reactivity is gone, right? It has so little to do with the sit, and it has so little to do with the down or the heel or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And it has more to do with appropriately timed discipline, right? And motivating enough discipline, right?
Yeah.
The sit is the first step that allows you to have the appropriate time discipline and the motivating discipline, but the sit in itself does not solve the problem.
Yeah.
Right? And this is the problem is I see people, they look at this and they think this, and then they say, even if I try to give them a treat, they still look at the other dog, right?
Yeah.
First off, there's never a time that I say you should worry about giving your dog a treat with this kind of stuff. So that tells me right away that this person is looking to surface level at this question and just thinking it's just about the sit. And all I have to do is do the sit the way that I've always done the sit, which is I give them a cookie.
Yeah.
Right? Which is not the instruction for this. No. Right? The second side of things, which I very clearly outline in things, is it's not about the looking either. It's not about the attention on the other dog. It's unrealistic that when you have a very dog-reactive dog, that as you're working through these types of issues, that your dog is not going to look at that dog. I did a lesson with somebody the other day that did a board and train and another trainer, in the East Side area, Cleveland, whatever.
Okay.
And they were like, my trainer told me that when my dog looks at another dog, I need to correct him for it. right? And this is common practice in the dog training world. Something I hear all the time is you correct your dog for looking at them. They don't need to look at the other dog. Or you correct the dog for loading. That's another one I hear all the time. Yeah, when they're loading, you know, you got to correct them for it, right? And without looking at the logic of how stupid that is, right? Let me explain it here, right? Let me take Vinny as my example right now.
Yeah.
Vinny, a very, very prey-driven dog, right? Squirrels, deer, birds, things like that. He gets jacked up for those things. Yeah. But here's the thing. He has 100% impulse control around those things. I posted videos of him holding down stays while a whole family of deer is walking like 30 feet behind him, right? It's not a problem, right? But he loves deer, right? Given the opportunity, he would love to go chase those deer, right? It's biologically ingrained into him, right? Yeah. That's nature, right? So here's what happens, right? We create this unrealistic expectation that we're going to get our dog to just ignore those things altogether, pretend they're not even there.
Yeah.
Good fucking luck. Good luck.
Yeah.
Right? You're telling me that my prey-driven Malinois that wants to go run and chase and kill like every freaking small animal that he sees probably, which again, and I'm over-exaggerating a little bit here because again, like he's fine around this kind of stuff. It's not, it's literally no problem, right? I've never run into an issue where I've not been able to control him around these animals, right? But it's a biological instinct he has, which means that I'm not going to turn that off, right? No. It's not going to disappear and suddenly he's going to be like, oh, deer over there? Whatever. I'm not even going to look at it.
No, he's going to...
Yeah. You know what's going to happen is I'm going to be healing with him, and he's going to see a deer, and he's going to be like... And he's going to heal perfectly with me. But he's going to be like, there's a deer over there. It's very exciting. I really would like to chase it.
Yeah.
See that, Dad? See that deer? Yep. Really like to chase it. Right? That's what happened. And guess what? Who cares? He does fine. He heals with me perfectly. He'll down when I ask him to down. He'll hold that down stay when I ask him to hold that down stay. He'll do a recall away from... I posted a video when I lived in Lyndhurst. There were deer all the time in my neighborhood.
Yep.
And we were posting a video with him where he was looking at a deer behind the fence over there. And I call him and say, come. Doop, turns around, comes right back to me. No problem. Yep. Right? But you're creating this false notion that we have to get the dog to not look at these things. Like, that's the issue. The issue is that they look at the other dog.
Yeah.
Right? That's... It's unrealistic. Then you can look at it from the dog-on-dog standpoint and say, okay, cool. Dog reactivity typically stems from a dog being concerned about other animals. Concerned about the other dogs, right? So then we're saying we have a dog that's concerned about other dogs, and they're acting out and lunging and reacting and stuff like that because they're scared of this other dog and want to make it go away, right? And then we're making our expectation you can't look at this thing. Well, guess what? If you're walking down the street, and I'm going to use all these human analogies here right now, just to try to make this as black and white as possible, right? If you're walking down the street and suddenly there's some creepy guy 20 feet behind you, right, that you're concerned about, right? You're perceived as concerned about. Yeah. Are you going to, like, not look at it at all and just be like, nope, it's not there.
No, you're gonna be laser beamed.
Just making sure I keep my eye on this thing, keep my eye on this thing, right? That's normal. This is real life.
Yeah.
Right? And it's normal for dogs also to look at the other dogs.
Yeah.
Right? So don't make your expectation that. Just focus on the control, the physical thing you're asking the dog to do. And as long as your dog does that thing, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It literally doesn't matter. That's how we've been able to successfully work through dog reactivity, is because we understand and we can see through so much of the bullshit in the dog training industry as far as what you have to do to work through these problems. Right? And I understand where it's coming from. It's coming from a place of like trainers trying to coach owners to correct their dogs sooner. But the problem is you're creating a false expectation for them of what this should look like.
Yeah. It's a live animal, not a robot.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And as long as they're controlling that urge and they're staying by your side, not wandering off or going after it, I don't see why that would be a problem.
And in time, right? And this is where you get in. It's a spectrum, right? It takes time to get there. Here's what typically happens, right? First, we get the control, and the dog's just like, oh fuck, there's a dog right there. That was really exciting. I'm trying really hard to keep it under control, and then they're successful with it, right? So what happens? Stress level comes down a little bit. And the next time, it's kind of exciting, but I did well last time. I didn't get a correction, this, that. You do successful with it. And then each time after that, okay, this is a little easier. Okay, this is a little easier, until you finally hit the point where they organically, okay, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Every time one passes by, nothing bad happens. I don't even really need to have hard eye contact with it anymore.
Yep.
You know, and they start loosening up with it. And this goes back to the conversation about the freaking double down that everybody talked about as well when we did the whole thing on that, where you're forcing this expectation of, like, in the dog reactivity case, don't look at the other dog or put your head down on the ground in the case of the double down, as opposed to letting them be in that scenario and be like, this is exciting. But they start learning, okay, I can chill. You know, I can relax in this position. It's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So again, don't look at this so surface level. This is the reasoning why we do all of these things when it comes to dog reactivity, right?
Yeah.
We pull off to the side. We put the dog in a stationary position to give you a clear visual of what control looks like for that dog. We position ourselves to be able to give a very, very firm and motivating correction if the dog does not do just that specific thing. Not if they look at it, not if they do this, not if they do that. And we do not add rewards into this process, because it's not going to do you any good, because the dog is too jacked up from the other dog right now. And you start organically letting them work through this in a controlled fashion. And that's it, you know?
Yeah.
So I think this person needs to re-watch my videos on this and re-understand these concepts a little bit better.
Yeah.
This is the problem.
Dude, I think, do you still have that video of them by the deer?
I'm sure I do.
Dude, that would go TikTok viral.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. I got to dig up some of my old videos that I had.
But I think that one, I mean, just with, like, having control of your whatever, you know, and, like, one of those silly TikTok songs behind it, blown up.
Yeah, 100%.
300,000 views.
3 million views.
You never know on TikTok.
You know what I'm just going to become is the David the dog deer trainer. So I'm just gonna travel around Northeast Ohio trying to find, like, large packs of deer where I can make my dogs do downstays, and just make a TikTok page solely videos of that.
Yeah, it's just,
you know,
dog deers. David the dog deer trainer.
David the dog deer trainer. All right, I think we're rolling right now. This is good. This is good. All right. Next question here. Question number 3. What should I do with my dog that has human-influenced behaviors not caused by me? In parentheses, I adopted the dog, and it already had those behaviors.
Oh, this is a good one. What? I'm
going to give the short and sweet answer.
Okay.
Stop using it as an excuse to not train the behaviors away. Well, listen, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You're saying human influence behaviors that I didn't create. Then uncreate them. Tell the dog you don't want him to do them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much as simple as that.
Yeah,
I mean, that's no different than every single dog that comes into our care that has behavioral issues that were created by something. We train those behaviors away. I mean, you know, like, hire a trainer and figure out how to stop those behaviors.
Yeah.
You know, this is the same thing as, and not to berate on anybody right now, but, like, the same deal as people tell me, oh, I'm trying to stop jumping, but, like, every time my mom comes over, she just makes the dog jump all over her. Well, tell the dog to not jump all over her.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, don't use it as an excuse.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, it's like they try to find excuses for their dog's behavior so they don't have to feel like they're not doing something correct and working through it, you know? As opposed to, listen, you're probably doing something incorrect, which is why the dog is still doing it, right?
Yeah.
This is where you get into dog training, right? And particularly behavioral issues are so relationship-based, right? The individual relationship that you have with this dog will dictate what that dog does in your presence, right? Yep. This is why us as dog trainers hear repeatedly over and over again from people, my dog is just, they're so good as soon as they see you. You know? Well, yeah, because we have a relationship with that dog where that dog knows that they're not going to get away with anything. Yeah. So what does that say about you? That says that you do not have a relationship with that dog of that dog not getting away with anything. That tells me that this dog gets away with everything with you.
Yep.
So what do? You got to get more consistent. You got to discipline the dog a little bit more. You have to have clear expectations of the dog in order to work through those things.
Yep.
So, again, regardless of what anybody does, right? If here's the thing. If I'm not present, I can't control what my dogs do. If I go to town for a week and my parents have one of my dogs, I can't control what happens there, right? I've told stories before about coming to pick my one dog, Vera, up, who doesn't jump on anything, and I walk up to the front door and I see her put her little paws up on the front door to see what's going on out the door,
Yeah.
She never does that around me, but apparently she gets away with it there, right?
Yeah.
I've said stories before about one of my dogs stealing food off the counter or something there, which they don't do that here, right?
Yeah.
They never do that here. But when I'm not there, I don't know what they're doing. I can't control that.
No.
Right? All I can do is I can control what happens when I'm present. So the second I'm present again, guess what? All that stuff goes out the window. They're back, they're behaved, and they know what they can't get away with me. Because regardless of what anybody does, I don't care if somebody walks into my house and begs my dogs to jump all over them, or hangs a steak halfway off the counter and says, here you go, eat this thing right here. My dogs know they can't do it because I will not allow it regardless of what that other person is doing. And you have to adopt that mentality with this kind of stuff, because if you don't, you will be constantly at the mercy of what everybody else is doing, which shows that you're a poor leader for your dog, which shows that your dog is going to assume that leadership role of doing whatever they want to do.
Yep.
Right? So unless you say, I can control the environment around me, I can control my dog in these different situations, I can stop these behavioral issues that somebody else created,
Yep.
you're not going to get anywhere. And this is kind of the hard truth of this kind of stuff. You got to step up to the plate a little bit.
Yep.
You know?
Take it on.
Take it on. All right, next one. Now, let me add one more caveat onto that here. In addition to adopting that mentality, yes, we should make sure that we're removing the reinforcement of those behaviors in the first place, right? So even though my dogs know not to jump on somebody that's begging them to jump on them, I'm going to make sure that that person knows, don't fucking do that with my dog.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Even though they know that they can get away with things here or there or this or that, I still tell my parents, don't let her do that when I'm not there, right? Because it makes it more fair for the dog.
Yeah.
Right? Even though my dog knows what they can get away with me, or what they can't get away with me, and what they can get away with other people, if those other people are doing those things constantly, it doesn't make it harder. It just becomes less fair that they can get away with it sometimes and not other times.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, next one. 4, can you expand more on reactivity and owners? I mean, we just talked a lot about reactivity in question 2 and the idea of how we go about addressing those things. But what I will do is I will break down what dog reactivity is and what typically causes it, right? So dog reactivity is a frustrated response that typically stems from a dog being on a leash, reacting at a trigger, so dog or people, whatever, that typically makes that thing go away, right? Dog reactivity, typically speaking, you have 2 kinds of it. You have the kind coming from the dog that's really scared and insecure. And in that case, dog is reacting, barking, growling, this, that at the dog to try to make that dog go away. So they're essentially making a big scene so that they don't have to approach that dog. And then you have the kind of the dog that just gets really, really amped up and excited and gets pissed off that there's something holding them back from getting to the thing they want to get to.
Yeah.
And it, builds up and shows itself in this big display. Both of them are addressed the same, right? Both of them are caused by slightly different things, though, right? So the dog reactivity from the scared, fearful standpoint typically is caused by too much on-leash greetings, where the dog is like, God, why do these dogs keep coming up to me all the time? Why aren't you doing anything about this? Oh, I'll just handle it myself and make that thing go away, right?
Yeah.
The excitable one is typically caused from poor leash manners. It's typically caused from some on-leash greetings as well, because that frustrated response of pulling into the other dog and getting jacked up every time they see them and stuff like that tends to be the case. Again, both are addressed very similarly, right? Now, what was I going to say? So those are the 2 different types of it. Like I said, it's caused typically by on-leash greetings, poor leash manners, Owners tend to contribute quite a bit into this because we tend to, when we start seeing these behaviors, start doing a lot of reassuring and petting and trying to console or allowing the dog to get away with certain things.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, it's the most difficult behavioral issue to work through, only because there's so many like false misconceptions about it, right? Like most people just don't understand it well enough, right?
Yeah.
When I tell people the first time, almost every single person, when I tell them, you're not allowed to let your dog interact with other dogs when they're on the leash, they're like, what? Why can't I do that? And then I go through the whole process of explaining why and explaining what happens. Where again, you're pulling up, you're creating frustration. They're digging into that leash, and that frustrated response builds itself up over time. This doesn't happen overnight like everybody seems to think that it does. What happens is little by little, they get a little more aroused, a little more aroused, a little more frustrated, a little more frustrated. Then they start whining a little bit. Then they start chirping a little bit. Then they start full on barking. Then the hackles come up. And it's just this huge like build up into this really, really bad behavior.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the gist of dog reactivity. I mean, again, we work through it by creating first good leash manners, because a lot of times that leash creates the initial problem, right? So we create good leash manners where the dog understands that leash is not something that's holding them back from getting to these things. So you can at least remove that tension that creates a lot of that frustration. Yeah. We socialize the dog in controlled settings, obviously, to make sure that they don't have negative associations with other dogs in the first place. Yep. And then we start exposing them to this kind of stuff in a controlled manner where they realize the dogs aren't coming up to them. We're not going to let you engage with the other dog, and you're going to be able to be around this thing and essentially get neutralized to it to some extent. Where every time, just like we talked about in question 2, every time they pass by and you keep it under control and we don't let them approach, your anxiety level will come down a little bit, and it'll come down a little bit, and it'll come down a little bit. But one of the things you got to accept is the owner, going back to explaining the owner side of things, is you have to be able to maintain your composure and your cool in these types of situations. A lot of people, when that dog starts reacting, they start getting, they freak out, right? They're yelling, they're screaming, they're doing this, they're doing that. Everything goes out the window. Where I've had so many situations where when I work with reactive dogs, it's like, no. Dog's losing it at the end of the leash. No, can't do that. Down. Whatever, this, that. Yeah. And you stay calm and you make the dog come down to your energy level as opposed to the other way around. You don't react, right? You just act in the first place, right? Don't react to the dog reacting, right? Be more proactive about making sure you're coaching the dog successfully through this kind of stuff. Yeah. So I don't know what else there is really to talk about it past that. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward concept. We have numerous YouTube videos on it you could watch. I think question 2 really answered that one a little bit more in depth.
I think closer for that is, I feel like there's just like a lot of misinformation out there saying instead of it's the leash's fault, it's your dog's fault. Like, and people just don't even think about what the leash is doing to aggravate their dog or the other dog.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the other side of things, going back to what you just said about it's the dog's fault versus the leash's fault, everybody looks at this and they think, oh my God, I have an aggressive dog.
Yeah.
Which is not the case. I mean, I have hardly ever seen a correlation between dog reactivity and actual dog aggression issues. Right? It is a frustrated display of just freaking out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
all it is.
I'm being yoinked right now while I'm trying. Yeah, it's a very frustrating thing. Like,
yeah, sure. Yelling, screaming, vocalizing. It's just. There's so much energy from all ends of the spectrum with it. And the first thing you got to do is you got to just chill out. And you got to just stay loose on that leash and not choke up all the time. You got to start training the dog, and you got to start just working them through this stuff. If you look at dog reactivity as not this independent thing, right? And you just look at it as a distraction, everything changes. Yeah. Right? It's no different than a UPS truck, right? If your dog is doesn't like UPS trucks or gets distracted by them. It's like, you don't look at that as like, oh my God, my dog has UPS truck reactivity. UPS. You know what I mean? It's not like its own thing. It's just my dog gets distracted by UPS trucks. Yeah. My dog gets distracted by dogs. My dog gets distracted by people. And you need to work through that distraction just like you would with anything else. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much just as simple as that, you know? Yes, some of those are higher or lower distractions than others, but just like we were talking about with deer and squirrels and stuff, it's still just a distraction. And if you could pick a command, whatever your dog's best command is, and you could work on that command in the presence of these other distractions, you start to understand that, oh, wow, like I'm not even worried about the other dog. My dog's not even worried about the other dog. We're just focusing on something that my dog knows how to do well, right? But the problem is, because of the society we live in, and because we live in a society where every dog needs to be best friends with every dog, every dog needs to be best friends with every person and stuff like that, we make those just distractions so much more novel to the dog, right? And so much more arousing and exciting than any other distraction that there may be, that it makes it more challenging to work through, right? Because we make it this own thing. We make it this crazy thing, right? Dog reactivity, typically speaking, is an owner-created issue, you know?
Yeah. This might be a slight tangent off that, but I had a thing, an experience that happened to me a couple weeks ago, and I forgot to talk about it last week. But we live in an apartment, so I have to take Bender out on a leash, to go to the bathroom. And this was like 11:30 at night. It's like right before bed, So he's doing his number 2. We're just sitting there, and I see this guy. He's got some weird, giant, fat golden retriever. And I see them. Like, we can see each other. This is 500 feet away. I'm like, okay. Well, so I go a little bit farther off the sidewalk. There's a big median thing kind of in between. And I'm over there, and then he starts doing his business. And then this dog finally sees Bender and is just like, whoa, whoa. It just starts bounding, and the guy's just like, just getting pulled around, and then he just lets the dog come up to my dog while he's doing his business. And I'm just like, dude, what are you, like, I'm like being calm about it, but I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, just calm down, man. Everything's fine. Calm down. I'm like, my dog's doing the business. First of all, like, good thing that Bender knows better than to do anything. But this situation is this giant dog is just bounding and pulling this dude on the leash to come say hi to my dog. And I was like, dude, take control of your dog. And he was just like, calm down. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. I don't know. It was a really frustrating situation. And I know it's not really dog reactivity, but it's just like, I don't know. Like, he has no control over
Well, it's dog reactivity from the standpoint of that's what creates dog reactivity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was just like a stressful situation that didn't have to happen. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And, things like that, that's where I get into... I've started getting proactively mean about stuff like that. You know, I'll see that situation from when the dog is 40 feet away, and I'll be like, hey, before they even think about doing it, don't let your dog come over to my dog. My dog's training right now. Please keep your dog under control, something like that. Where it's like, listen, they might be pissed off at me all day long from that still, but at least I avoided that situation from happening in the first place. And it sucks because you're the bad guy all the time. Yeah. Just because you don't want other people to let their dog freaking drag over to your dog. It's so intrusive too. It's like if people just came up to you, just boom, hey,
what's up?
Hey,
you'd be like, this guy's crazy.
Get the fuck away from me,
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Yeah.
So just stop doing that. Don't be a dick.
Yeah, just have control of your dog, and don't think that your dog needs to meet everybody.
I agree. All right, question 5. What should I do in an emergency situation when I need to take my dog with a serious car-based anxiety in the car? What do you think, Josh?
What should you do?
Yeah. What should I do in an emergency situation when I need to take my dog with a serious car-based anxiety in the car?
Put it in a crate.
You should put it in the car. You take
or,
it. You know what I mean?
Put it in the car,
put it in the car and you go where you need to go. So this is where I need context, right? What is the serious car-based anxiety?
Yeah.
Is it just the dog freaks out and screams and tries to crawl into the front seat and stuff like that? Is it the dog gets car sick? Because really, those are the only 2 things that it could be.
Yeah, I'm guessing it.
I don't think this dog is just gonna keel over and die if you stick it in the car, from its anxiety. Yeah. If you have an emergency, you put the dog in the car and you take it where you need to go, and you figure out a way if the dog is bouncing all over the place to restrain it, stick it in a crate or seatbelt harness or something like that, so the dog can't move around all over the place and stuff. But More importantly, why are you waiting until it's an emergency situation before you work through your dog's car anxiety?
Yeah.
You know what you do is you work through the car anxiety now so that if you run into an emergency situation, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. That's a weird one. Like,
I'm feeling spicy today, Josh.
well, it's those jalapenos. But like, yeah, I mean, if you're already like worried about it now, just start working through it now. Yeah.
So again, breaking that down further here, you have basically two types of car anxiety you could have, right? You have the more behavioral car anxiety, which is what most people think of when they say stuff like this, which is the dog is screaming and barking and climbing all over the place and jumping from place to place and this and that. And then you have like what I would consider the deep-rooted car anxiety, which is basically the dog just lays there and shakes and like vomits.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it gets really
just gets very, we'll say car sick, right? Yeah. And that one is that one's more like, that's more motion sickness based than anything, you know? Because the dog is not moving around. They're just like, fuck. It's like probably what I look like when I get off of a roller coaster, you know? Like, oh, I don't feel very good. Oh, I'm going to throw up, this, that, you know?
Yeah.
That's kind of what that one is. And in that one, there's only so much you're going to do about it. But listen, if it's an emergency situation, you put the dog in the car and you take him somewhere. I mean, it's like I said, like they're not going to die from it, you know, like they're going to be okay, you know. And typically speaking, a lot of those dogs, like if you have an emergency, you need to drive 4 hours with the dog. Like after the first hour, they're going to kind of settle a little bit more into it, you know.
Yeah.
The behavioral one, though, you could work away through right now. Right now. Here's what I want you to do. Buy an e-collar. Put it on your dog. Have it set fairly high. If the dog tries to jump in the front seat, you correct him for it. You stick him in the back seat. If the dog tries to jump in the front seat again, you correct him for it. You stick him in the back seat. You don't let them sit in the fucking front with you. How many times do you see that? You're driving down the street, dog's in the person's lap, dog's in the passenger seat. So like, do you know how dangerous that is?
So dangerous.
So dangerous. Or I see this one all the time too. Owner sits in the back with the dog.
Yeah.
They're like, they get anxious. I need to be back here with them.
Yeah.
You consoling the behavior will not stop it and will make it worse. You're catering to the dog. The dog needs to learn to chill back there by itself. When I was a kid, I was told, put your seatbelt on, sit down, shut up.
Basically,
the car is not for entertainment purposes.
No.
The car is for transportation, right? We look at the cars, we're going for joy rides. My dog loves going for car rides. I don't care if they love going for car rides. Roll your windows up, set your boundary of where the dog needs to be, correct them if they get outside of that boundary. If they're pacing around back there, correct them again for it because they're cycling in an anxious headspace. If they're freaking out the window at stuff, you need to correct them for it. You start setting boundaries. The reason why I see so much car anxiety like this is because the car is one of the few places in our day-to-day where there's zero structure, zero rules, zero accountability.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So because of that, these dogs just get themselves freaking spun up, right? They just get amped the fuck up and they can't control it. And they're just like, we're in the car. Woo! Let me stick half my body out the window. And let me bark. Hey, right? Like, it's just like they just get crazy. You know, they just get absolutely bonkers crazy. We have a dog right now, Duke, Deaf Duke. I posted a YouTube video of him the other day, right? One of their owners' big things was massive car anxiety, I think they said, right? Massive car anxiety. He's horrendous in the car. Guess what I did? We stuck him in the car. We went for like a 10-minute drive. Very first thing I did, corrected him super high for pacing around in the back seat. Then I corrected him super high for trying to jump into the front seat. Then what I did is I put him into a down command and I corrected him super firmly for not holding that down. And guess what? Within like 2 minutes, he was a freaking angel in that car.
Yep.
Literally, dude, freaking angel in that car. And in their questionnaire, that was like their big thing. Was like car. Bad in the car.
Bad in the car.
Right? Guess what we did? We set some rules. We set some boundaries. We put some discipline in place. And he was great in the car. And then when I went to go do it the next day, we didn't even need to correct for any of it. Gave him that down. Popped into that down. Good to go.
Yeah.
Put some structure in place. Work on this stuff now. And don't wait until things are a problem. Right? That's like people that wait until their aggressive dog gets out of the house and attacks another dog or attacks their guest that comes over before they're like, oh yeah, that problem we had, 2 years ago. Oh, well, maybe we should work on it now.
Like, oops, duh.
Yeah, too late.
Jeez Louise.
All right, next one. Question 6. Is it too late to start training my dog?
No.
It depends.
Oh.
So let me start this by saying you can teach an old dog new tricks. There's not really a too late as far as learning. My two exceptions to that, because listen, we'll work with dogs up to 10 years old, 11 years old, stuff like that. Two things I look at, right? Health of the dog, right? If the dog is having hip issues and this and that, we're very limited with what we could do from a physical obedience training standpoint because they can't move around very well. If they're in a lot of pain and we're asking them to sit and down and get up and this and that, that's not fair, right?
That's true.
Now, we could still do some remedial training as far as giving corrections for things, but we can't do a lot of formal obedience training at that point.
Okay.
Second thing, if their health is like they're only going to live like 2 more years, right? Like, how much of a financial investment do you want to make in a dog that might only have a couple years left? That's another big question that I have people ask themselves. And those are kind of the two things, right? You have to ask yourself from a financial standpoint, how much investment do I want to make in this situation? Because training is not cheap. Good training is not cheap. That's true. And then 2, is the dog in physically good enough of health in order to work through this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
So you tell me, is it too late to start the training? Last one. Okay. How do I work my extremely anxious dog with noise phobias? That one's a good one because yesterday we were working with a dog that has exactly that. So we have a dog. His name is Grady. He's in for a board and train, new board and train. Okay. Owner called me ahead of time. She's like, this dog has massive noise anxiety, like crazy, like beeping, this, that, like any of that kind of stuff just sets him into a full-on panic, right? And, we hear that a lot. We'll hear a lot of people tell us that. It's like, whatever, a dog gets a little anxious, this, that. She was not kidding. She was not kidding. Yeah. Crazy. We pulled up on our phone. Bridget was playing like a truck backing up noise, like the beep, 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 beep. Yeah. Dude, as soon as she hit play on that video at like half volume on her phone from like across the room, this dog just full on started chirping, screaming, scrambling on the floor, trying to like run away, tried crawling up the wall to like, just like full on freaking panic. Yeah. It was nuts.
Wow.
We documented it. We got video of all of it. Nice. We started filming the process of working through this. We're going to make a really great video before and after on how to work through some of this kind of stuff. Perfect. Because there's so much. This goes back into the conversation. All these TikTok trainers out there that talk about counter conditioning. We want to make a positive association with these noises and stuff like that. Yeah. First step of working through like serious noise phobias is accepting the fact that your dog will not have a positive association with that thing. If they're having such a negative association already with it, it will never be truly positive. Right? Which means that you got to kind of throw the treats out the window for a little bit. It's not going to work. You're not really going to get anywhere with it. No. Later on, once you've started to chip away at some of this kind of stuff, you could typically add them back in and start to create a better association with it. Yeah. But your dog is never going to love these noises, right? No. This goes back to dog reactivity. You have to look at this stuff not as an independent thing. Forget noise phobia. Forget that for a minute and just think distraction. So how do we train distractions with dogs, right? We create a clear expectation. We take what is it that we are proofing. In this case, we used a bed stay, right? We make sure the bed stay is taught. We make sure the bed stay is nice and clear to the dog. We make sure we have a clear way of enforcing it where we can correct the dog for not doing that behavior. In this case, is with an e-collar, right? And what do? We proof the bed stay utilizing these noises. So guess what? What I did, put the dog on the bed, turn noise on, dog freaks out and jumps off bed, give the dog a real firm correction, help them back on. Same deal, dog tries to jump up and crawl up the side, give the dog a firm correction, get the dog back in. We probably had to correct super high like 6 or 7 times, right? Finally got the dog to settle into the position. Then we repeated that drill over and over and over and over and over again. Yeah. Then we did it with a down over and over and over and over and over again. And because we got the dog to care more about the consequences for not doing the behavior that we were getting them to do than they were scared of the noise, what happened is by about maybe 30 minutes into the session, we were able to put the dog into a stationary position, trigger that noise, and have no response out of the dog. Yeah. It was really, really cool. Dog was still stressed out of its mind. Yeah. But we hit the first icebreaker, right? The first icebreaker was, can we get the dog under control around this trigger so that we could start finally developing a better association with these things, right?
Yep.
It's just like with the reactivity. You got to forget about the emotional state of mind the dog is in because it's a spectrum, right? If this is terrified as fuck and out of control, and this is super under control and super calm and chill and relaxed, what do you have to get through to get to that? You have to get to under control, but still pretty fucking scared.
Yeah.
So that you can get to under control and relaxed.
Yep.
It's all this stuff is a spectrum. This stuff doesn't go from here to here right away, right? This stuff goes through all the in between before it gets there, right? And what happens is as the dog continues to be exposed to this stuff and be around this stuff, they'll loosen up more and more, and then you'll start being able to develop food drive. You'll start being able to create a better association with these things. And that's how you work through this kind of stuff in a nutshell. But you got to be prepared for the hard work.
Oh, yeah.
The initial hard work of your dog's going to freak out. And you need to forget, my dog's scared. I want to console them and help them through this. And you need to tell them, no, you can't do that. You can't act on this right now. And that's the hardest part for people. Removing the emotion and doing the hard stuff that's going to be beneficial for the dog that you don't necessarily want to do.
Yeah.
Call it tough love.
Yeah. And it kind of ties into the question before. It's just like, how ingrained is that in your dog's mind or whatever? The more ingrained it is, the more it's going to take to regress that, I guess. Would you say?
Yeah, I would say you're correct.
Also, you guys have a perfect spot for noise.
Yeah, seriously. A lot of trucks, a lot of UPS, a lot of things like that.
Is that all our TikTokers?
That's all our TikTok questions.
Those were good.
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
I'll save the Instagram ones for another time. Yeah, I thought they were all fairly good questions. They were all unique enough, I think.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that I didn't have a whole lot of context of them because I can give those general broad answers for it.
Yeah.
That's it.
It was good.
Yeah.
I like it.
So yeah, I mean those are the questions. Hopefully everybody liked it. We haven't done a Q&A show in a while.
I liked it.
We're probably going to be doing some sort of interesting-ish podcast for next week. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but we're kind of working on that right now. Then we got some guests coming in. So it's good. 31 episodes in. We're fucking crushing it. We're still going. Started January 11th. Wow. Remember we just a little white table.
Yeah.
A white folding table.
Yeah. In the one
single camera.
Single camera.
That's it.
Yeah, we've come a long way.
We're growing.
Yeah. I can't wait to get guests in again, though.
We need more guests. Yeah, it's been a while.
If you would like to be on a podcast.
Honestly, we'll talk to anybody. If anybody wants to be a part of the podcast, hit it up.
Hit it up.
We'll have you on. We'll talk about whatever the fuck you want to talk about.
And if you want to hear anybody again that's been on the podcast, let us know.
Ooh. Sweet. We're going to wrap that up.
Yes.
You can find me at Davidthedogtrainer or at Miracle Canine Training or at miracleCanineTraining.com.
Find me at Josh Dobey Productions on Instagram or JoshDobeyProductions.com.
Dope. Anything else to note?
Follow the YouTube, Miracle Canine Training. YouTube.com/Miracle Canine Training.
Blowing up. I think we've got 60 new followers since we started re-uploading to it.
Yeah. And it's not only this, it's a bunch of hours. I mean,
catch it all.
How many hours do you think we have on the Miracle Canine Training YouTube page?
A lot.
It's
I
got
don't know.
to be days worth.
There's got to be a way to look it up, right?
I'll have to look that up and get that to you because we have hundreds of hours of tutorial content and podcast content, questions. I mean,
all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, if you don't follow the YouTube page, you are fucking up.
You sure are. I like it.
All right,
gang.
We'll see you next time.
Catch you on the flip side.
Bye.